yoga stretch. A perfect stretch for any body type at any time. Let's start off by mobilizing the hips a little bit. So we're just gonna sit on the back sit bones. We're gonna plant both feet in front of us with the hands by the side. This is a classic windshield wiper pose, and if doing it seated is too much, just lie on your back and take a supine version. You're simply gonna drop both knees to one side, come through center, and switch. So hip mobility is incredibly important. It's also very challenging for those of us that spend most of our day or our life in a complex linear position, like sitting, standing, walking, or stair climbing. So if this feels awkward for you, just breathe through it, be safe, and stay with the modified options. So now that we've got a little bit of internal rotation and external rotation, let's go ahead and come to a classic yoga pose, cobbler's pose. This is the soles of the feet together, allowing the knees to flop open. If you're very tight in the low back or hips, please sit on a block at either its lowest or second lowest level. I'm just gonna rock side to side until I'm sure I'm even on both sit bones. I'm gonna engage my core, lift tall, and then hinge from the hips. Now the key to making it maximize the stretch for the hips, the inner thighs, and the low back, it's a flat back. So rather than rounding over and trying to touch your forehead to your toes, I'd rather that you move the feet a little more forward, lift and lengthen through the spine, and hinge only as far as you can maintain a flat back. Now, you're free to press pause and hang out in this stretch for 15 or 20 breaths if it's feeling really deep for you. Together, we're just gonna take one more breath here and hinge. And then come up and we'll work on some more hip rotation. This stretch, it's a series of 90-degree stretches that can help prepare you for a little more advanced yoga stretch called pigeon. So we're gonna turn it to your left. So you're gonna have your left knee in front. It's likely to be a 90-degree angle in the front and the back. If you're a little more flexible, you can narrow that angle and try to square the hips to the front of the mat. So from here, we just breathe, engage that core, and lift tall. So you're getting a nice external rotation in the back hip and the front hip, and a nice stretch for the piriformis. Now we're gonna go side to side, similar to what we did earlier. We're just gonna lean back and gently switch it to the other side. So I want you to breathe and take a couple of breaths each side. We'll switch between, and you'll get a feeling for how your hips move, how they articulate, and how the head of the femur operates within that hip socket. So the flexibility and mobility and movement of this pose will entirely depend on how you've lived your life up until now and what your daily activities are. So we're gonna do one more each side, and then we're gonna add a little internal rotation in the back hip. We're gonna sweep it around. And from here, I'm gonna slide the back knee back, reach back for the front of the foot, and I'm gonna internally rotate this back hip and my shoulder, and get a nice deep stretch here. Breathe, and lower, and lift and square it off, and lower. So you'll notice it's pretty challenging to go from an external hip rotation to an internal one, and you'll also feel that stretch across the front shoulder. So last one here. Let's come to center, flip it to side two, and try the same thing. Remember, the first step is to slide that knee back. Reach back, heel toward the seat. And again, I'm gonna take this hip and this shoulder and internally rotate them toward the front of the mat. And this will help with some of those complex postures like Warrior One. So let's try. Lean it back and exhale, internally rotate. Now, you've heard me say it before, I never want you to yank body parts. So the foot should actually lead the way. And that movement doesn't come from the knee, right? It comes from the hip. So even if I let go, the movement would be the same. So we just play with this, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. One more here. Excellent. Let's come through center and let's get a nice twist. Now again, you can do this lying on your back if you prefer, or if you're ending your day with this stretch. If you're activating after this, a seated position works amazingly. Let's go ahead and step that right foot across the left. And again, the key is in grounding both sit bones evenly. Level one, you might just keep the hand gently resting on the shin. I'm gonna take my right arm up because the first step of a stretch is to reach and create space, and then we move into the twist. If you have more space here, you'll move the knee to the crook of the elbow, lift tall, And exhale, twist a little deeper. And this feels so good for the spine. Of course, we can continue moving it a little more deeply, and that would be the cactus arm, tricep outside the thigh. And then of course, if you're very advanced, you'll do this with the double knee bend. So again, there's no advantage to moving deeper if your body's not ready for it. That's when we risk injury. So I'd rather you just stay at a pace where you can breathe and where it feels good and therapeutic for your body. Let's come through center. Now, you can either just lean back and switch legs, or I have a fancy transition for you that also helps with hip mobility, where you circle it around, and here we are on side 2. So this pose is called half Lord of the Fishes pose, and it's a seated spinal twist. We start off with that leg straight, hand gently to the shin, left arm reaches up. Of course, we try to smile as we inhale, and then we exhale and we twist out any toxins in our body physically, but also, how about we twist out some toxins in our heart emotionally too? If the knee easily comes to the crook of the elbow, that's a next step. If you have the space to self-adjust with the tricep outside the thigh, great. No need to bend that bottom knee, but if you have that flexibility, what's gonna dictate that typically is the flexibility of the IT band and the outer hip, the gluteus medius and minimus, and then of course, even underneath there, piriformis and the low back. So even if you don't know what those things are, trust me, they need to stretch. We'll lift and open, and then we come through center. Let's go ahead and take one more set of stretches. So this is a one-sided hip opener. Now, actually both hips are opening, but it's a one-sided extension for the leg. We're gonna get the hamstring, and we're gonna get a twist that gives us a low back stretch too. So from here, I'm gonna flex the right foot. I'm gonna turn my torso to the right, cross the wrists, and try to fold. Now in this case, it is okay to round over the leg. So you can round over, yearning your chest toward your shin, and surrender the forehead. So this is a hip opening, hamstring stretching, low back stretching twist. So lots of things going on here. Again, a great pose to go ahead and press pause if you want to stay a little extra. Back in the days of 90-minute yoga classes, we would stay in a pose like this for 10 to 15 slow breaths. When you feel ready, you round up, and in between sides, let's open both legs. Now remember, this position, if you didn't grow up dancing like I did, might be here, and that's awesome. Find the width that works for you. Let's take a nice forward fold, and we walk one step at a time. So it's all about surrendering and releasing when we're stretching. There's no attachment. In fact, we don't even have to reach, right? We surrender, we allow, we exhale, and we move deeply. And then we try a second side. So this will be the last stretch. So again, it's a pretty complicated one. We've worked a lot with different hip mobility positions in this particular flow. So let's turn the torso toward the leg. Flex the foot, that'll give the hamstring and calf some space. Now you wanna have your wrists crossed, and that is so this outside arm helps you twist the torso, and then you fold maybe an inch, maybe a little deeper. Certainly a great opportunity to surrender the mind, to deepen the breath, and to just let go of anything that may be weighing you down. We accumulate so much over the day, so much over the years. So if you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, all of that stuff that we accumulate in our brain weighs us down. Practice exhaling some of it out. All that weight is not yours to carry. And then we come on up to sit. We'll finish as we began, Sukhasana, a nice cross-legged position, maybe on a block. Take a moment to enjoy and experience as you move through the day or evening how good your hips feel after this particular yoga stretch. And I'll see you back on the mat for more yoga.